What's happening YouTube? This is Roland here, and I'm pretty much calling for a boycott of this man, Verlisify. Reasons being is, you can see beside me, constantly we put up with this man's behaviour and it's really reached a pretty much extreme level, and this can't go unchallenged. This certainly can't go unchallenged with his most recent behaviour. Number one, he tells someone to go drink bleach on Twitter just recently. But, you know, aside from that, which is obviously very serious, he is responsible for multiple other dramas. He's constantly defaming and lying about other poketubers. He's constantly criticizing and flaming other Pokemon communities, and he's always playing victim. Always, without fail, playing victim, you know, when it comes to other people. So when we look at this, we don't see a model community figure at all. We don't see a model Pokemon YouTube community figure at all in Verlisify. And quite frankly, he should be put in his place, even by smaller people. Yes, I see the fact that I'm obviously a smaller YouTuber, but I don't see how that should make my opinion of Verlisify insignificant, or what he's done any less worse than what it's been. So, you know, the smallest person, I feel, can make the difference. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's watch the video, and yeah, I think you'll see why people have problems with Verlisify by the time you finish watching this video, because it's not always as Verlisify would have you believe it. The people in the community that have had to put up with his behavior and be on the receiving end of it can vouch that for you, that he is, you know, always twisting it into how he sees it and what is actually not the reality of the situation. So I hope you sit back, enjoy, and yeah, let's get in. But this is low. And I quote Verlisify: "Another hater that needs to drink base liquids. How can anyone be this dumb?" End quote. That is the stupidest thing you could say. Encouraging someone to commit self-harm. But I must admit, I love how your sentence answers itself. Because you, sir, are dumb. Because this could actually get you in a lot of potential legal trouble. And it is insensitive as well. So you see, I really like how your sentence contradicts itself, because you're dumb for in fact saying it. But it is also very serious and very unacceptable, because it's going to be very open to interpretation. I also must admit, I like how you're trying to get your way out of it by claiming it's egg whites. Bullshit! You knew going into this that this was a suicide reference, and you knew going into it that it's also a reference for self-harm. So you're encouraging people to drink bleach, are you? You're encouraging people to drink poison. You have a responsibility as a public figure on YouTube to be somewhat responsible. And I actually disagree with the way you've been handling yourself more lately before this, but this is really taking it to a new extreme. A very new extreme. Now, I'm going to give you something to think about. Have you ever lost anyone close to you, Verlisify? Whether it be family, friends, to, you know, via death, whether it be suicide or cancer? Did that hurt? Did it make you feel sad on the inside? Did you know? Pray tell. Because I don't know if you have a shred of humanity in you. Honestly, I don't. Let me give you a little backstory. 2 years ago, my best friend took his own life. He gassed himself in the car. That wasn't very funny. You know, it's not good. It's not a good feeling on those of us left behind. And here you are encouraging it. Here you are encouraging that people commit self-harm. Seriously, I will give you some statistics, and I'll give you some other examples if I have to prove my point. And if you bothered to do your research and you want to make this argument saying, no, I meant eggs. Well, bullshit again, because consuming raw eggs can increase your salmonella risk. So at the end of the day, we really have to beg the question, what are you trying to say? Do you mean eggs? Because really, do you think it's funny that someone should be in hospital with salmonella poisoning? I don't know. You seem to think that you're a law among yourself, that you could never do any wrong. So you'll make reference to someone getting sick by either drinking bleach, increasing their salmonella risk. Ultimately, you are suggesting that someone should die. And I find this funny. You're making suicide references, this guy's making suicide references, everyone's making suicide references. But it looks really terrible when you, who makes suicide references, tries to call someone else out for making suicide references. Now, yes, this relates to your issue with Proto Mario, which you have since resolved since during my time making this video, but in all honesty, you got there in the first place with what usually gets you into trouble anyway. Didn't take a genius to know that, because you're always in some stupid drama anyway, so what difference would it make? Please tell me, what difference would it make? Some people say that Verlis is famous and he gets too much undeserved hate. Well, you could be famous for all the wrong reasons. Did you ever consider that? And in Verlis' case, he is. But Verlis has now told someone to kill themselves. Well, commit self-harm. What did Michelle Carter here do? She's now facing involuntary manslaughter. These statistics are from the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. Are you saying to me, Verlisify, seriously, would you like to see an increase in our age group? I'm guessing that's around your age group, maybe slightly older and slightly younger. Would you like to see an increase in these statistics? Really? Do you really want to be responsible for an increase in these statistics? Because you got to remember, you are a public figure and you are expected to behave in a reasonable manner. I could argue that your defamation and treatment of other YouTubers is already a step in the wrong direction as far as, being a responsible public personality goes. But telling people to commit suicide is taking it to a very extreme level. And I think by the amount of damage you've done to yourself now, you pretty much have to get a PR guy to help you figure out what the fuck is wrong with your image. And failing that, I think you really need to consider counseling now, because you don't realize the potential trouble you can get yourself into. And when it comes to your calculation, especially for Volcarona versus Maglucario, it is vastly incorrect. Firstly, if you're going to be running a scarf Volcarona, you are more than likely going to be running special attack investment, as this quiver dance set here as a point of reference would show. But you can't switch in on Maglucario. If stealth rocks are up, you're pretty much gone, bye-bye. And even if we suspected you were scarfed Volcarona and you switched in on the stealth rocks, we could knock you out to extreme speeds if you were running extreme speed. But, excuse me, you seem to think that you're always right and that you could never possibly be wrong. Well, what does Volcarona have to do in order to survive and be a 3-hit KO in your analogy? And bear in mind for rocks, because rocks are pretty much everywhere. So you'd probably have to run a set such as this for your analogy to be true. And okay, I'll be nice to you here. We'll take the stealth rocks away. So, okay, your analogy here might be correct, but you're running no special attack investment, and the point of a Scarf Pokemon is to be a fast attacker. And not only that, we're running a bold nature. So if we're running a Scarf Pokemon, don't we want to be fast? Why run a defensive nature on a Scarf? This doesn't, it's a very unusual set, but it would, there would be a lot of other limitations there. But again, if we put up Stealth Rocks, you're pretty much screwed anyway, especially if you run a priority move. Same scenario, all we'd have to do is you wouldn't be able to switch in, close combat, even minimum damage to extreme speeds after a Stealth Rock, you're still screwed. So yeah, I mean, you never do the research, you just go ahead and make an outlandish claim right off the bat that your analogy is gospel, and in fact it's not. It's just like when you made the analogy that Mega Kangaskhan, for example, was a counter, So that Slurpuff was a counter for Meg Genghis Khan, which it is not. Seriously, fake out, return buy. I never got where you go with that. And of course, this is dealing with the fact that we are looking at this from the perspective of when X and Y were the main games. And coincidentally enough, Lucario was banned when X and Y were also the main games in OU. So this is not accounting for your statistics that you get from Battlesport, because I don't consider them relevant to your argument as far as Stone Edge is concerned, because I'm looking at actual figures that pretty much prove to me that Volcarona can't really deal with Lucario all that well. And remember, of course, again, referring to the reference behind me, you seem to think that Slurpuff is a Mega Genghis Khan counter, when in fact, in the X and Y metagame, it did not have access to Drain Punch like it does today. And you just made an outlandish claim on the Flaming Spades video, recent video, that Slurpuff was a counter when it is indeed not. It can clearly not deal with Mega Genghis Khan, no matter what way you put it. Now, to understand Verlisify's past and why he's so obsessed with bagging on Smogon, VGC, all this other stuff, you have to understand sort of part of the guy's backstory. Now, here's Magnitude, good YouTuber. I'm subscribed to him. I'm not logged into my YouTube account in this web browser, so that explains why there's a sub button there. But if you look at the screens closely and examine them, they contain a few tweets and a few YouTube comments. You get to see the picture a little bit clearer. This guy is obsessed with publicity, and he thinks that any publicity is good publicity, even bad publicity. But pay close attention to what he says there in the third comment. It's like, oh, it's a publicity stunt. So pretty much, historically, everything Verlisify does when it comes to drama is a publicity stunt. He puts the blame on other people and plays the victim in order to get sympathy and to further his own political purpose, which is pretty stupid. We'll also quickly examine the other links that Magnitude includes in the description. He undeservedly from time to time also calls people out. And obviously, you're welcome to watch the video yourself. I'll probably leave an annotated link here if you are interested in seeing that. By that, obviously, I mean Magnitude's video. And yeah, you see, it's with him, with Verlisify, it's just a revolving circus of drama. It's like the Bold and Beautiful Verlisify edition, pretty much. That would have been a good video title, come to think of it. But yeah, essentially, it's an ongoing soap opera that is quite dry and quite old. And I'm still amazed to this day that 150,000 people watch the soap opera when they probably want to watch Pokemon content instead, in all honesty, if I may. And here's the second comment, which for all intents and purposes is actually pretty big bullshit. And he talks about personal flair and strong video, this, that. It's silly. Consider this. In Verlisify's more recent videos, he starts by, calling people associated with Smogon or VGC over-competitive jerks, or something along that lines. I think on Twitter, he referred to us as over-competitive douchebags. And yeah, how's that being a strong argument for, your point of view? Being extremely ad hominem right off the bat. Please tell me. That doesn't make a strong video. Did Pyrotos in his original video, did he make any ad hominem attacks? Oh, no, I don't think he did. I'm pretty certain he didn't. That's why it was a strong video, right? Am I right? Some of you may also remember this video where Verlisify, around the 320 mark, specifically mentions and specifically apologized to Shady Penguin as well. So I'm going to read to you the comment Shady Penguin, and if I can find it too, Aaron Zhang even left a comment on this video too. And I'm going to show you and prove to you how much of a non and fake apology this actually is and was. So if I can just show you down here, this is the comment Shady Penguin left. The apology is extremely humbling and definitely accepted, man. You didn't have to do this, and I accept it wholeheartedly, and also apologize for anything I may have done to give you the impression that I didn't like you. I just wish you went into a bit more detail on our friendship. We have had 2 conversations on Skype back in January, and they were a bit lengthy for sure, but that was it. 2 conversations, not calls, text conversations. I've already messaged you on Skype, all of this, but I figure let's put a variation of it here too. So, yeah. And if you fast forward to today, in a more recent interview with Lucky Lad TV, in part 1 of his interview, so if you examine around at this point in the video here, you will listen to pretty much Verlis calling them out, despite the fact that Shady Penguin in particular had made a apology comment on that Fresh Start video.
Me down. I said in my videos before, Shady, Nappy, they've turned down battle requests. Shofu for sure. So it's not like, where's the battle request? Verlisify? It's like, no, go talk to them, because I've talked with everyone. I want to work with everyone. They're the ones that hold something against me, and that's the problem.
And that's not the problem, because that's now a fake apology. Essentially, that apology you made is null and void, Verlisify, because you're now crying for attention. This proves it. This is obviously evidence and proof of this fact. And here's the comment that Aaron Zhang left. Good luck, man. I know we had our differences, and I definitely apologize for being negative towards you earlier on. You've got a good attitude now. Keep on doing what you love. There are a lot of people out there that enjoy your content. Hope to see you at a real-life VTC event sometime. Best wishes. And if you pay close attention to the dates of the comments left on YouTube and look at the dates of the tweets, you will see that Verlisify has effectively chucked the apology that, the comments that Aaron left on his video right back in his face on Twitter, which is just stupid. Really, why reference it anymore if it's in the past and all things are resolved? That, it boggles at the mind. It really does beg a lot of questions of what his true motives are. Does he accept apologies, and can he make appropriate apologies and mean them? I also make brief mention of the Ice Bucket Challenge video Verlisify posted. Now, you may not think this is important. However, also recall that Verlisify had some history with Shofu. From what I know more recently, they have met and discussed. But this should just be there here for a point of reference to what Verlisify has done in the past, so you can get an idea of what he is like. So he challenged Shofu while not on speaking terms with Shofu. And I'm not the only person to see or acknowledge this either. So if I go down here, you can see a few comments here. But I think one stood out to me. Wait, Verlis and Shofu on speaking terms again. I don't have a Twitter account, so I can't really follow any of this thing. At the time, we knew they were not on speaking terms, and I think this is a stunt that was in bad taste. You know that the person you are challenging is not on good terms with you, and you're making it more about the issue you have with that individual more than the good-spirited fun of the exercise, which is meant to promote a charity or a charitable cause, which just doesn't sit well with me. And quite frankly, it's not a good thing to see. It's kind of in bad taste, in my opinion. Of course, this isn't the first time that Verlisify called out Shofu. The very first time is when he made a 2,500 subscriber update, and he mentioned Shofu at around this time. And of course, the comments section verifies this. So I can't really, you can't really take what he says seriously if he is calling out Shofu constantly. This part of the video is going to briefly touch on Verlisify's viewpoint on cheating and genning in general. Now, I must say that I really don't care too much if you gen to legal stats. What would annoy me though is if you hacked the game to have something like, say, contrary Mewtwo. which you can't get, which is impossible, or Blastoise with Fire Blast, or 252 EVs and that is what I define as cheating. But if you have a different viewpoint to me, cheating to you might mean, use of no external hardware or software whatsoever to manipulate the game data. Truth be told, we would not know about IVs and EVs had people not data mined the game in the past. So, we would have, for IV and EV training to be what it is today, we would have had to know how some of the internals of the game worked in order to achieve that. Because it's not until more recently that obviously the Pokemon Company has given more data on that and pretty much made it a little bit easier for people to know exactly what they're doing in order to get a good IV Pokemon and EV train, that sort of thing. But yeah, when it comes to Verlisify's views on cheating, I am questionable of them, because he did endorse, as you may recall, the instant check method to get shiny Pokemon. And as I said before, if you're someone who's a purist and very against cheating, your opinion probably includes no external hardware and software. And of course, instant check, you had to hook up to wireless hotspot, which you created, and then read the network traffic of the game. And eventually the same exploit could be used to look at your opponent's moves during the battle, which obviously broke the game, and obviously Nintendo patched it. And of course, Verlisify makes all these videos saying that he's anti-cheating, anti-genning, and of course, Nintendo have patched the game for cheats and whatnot since. Now, here's where his argument falls apart, I guess. He seems to think that, he'll tolerate insta-check, and I think later on when I had this conversation, he claimed to have not known that, the insta-check exploit was also being used to cheat in battles, which I think is bullshit. I call bullshit on that. But he seems to think that, if he's going to support the game developer, and say, I support the notion to crack down cheating, then pretty much he should be, he's acting like a no external hardware or software purist. And in fact, he didn't support InstaCheck, which was obviously, again, patched by Nintendo prior. And obviously, Nintendo have patched the game for cheating since. So if he's going to be someone who's against cheating, then I find it a bit funny how he endorses one set of patches to exploit a certain matter of cheating, but tolerates other exploits and security weaknesses in the game. So, yeah, that I find a little bit strange. I will say that to you now. And I must say, I find it pretty funny that Verlisify probably couldn't tell you with a straight face whether or not any of the Pokemon on his cartridge might be hacked. Might be may have been obtained through means of either power save or genning. And he's a anti-cheat person. The only way he'll be able to know is whether or not he takes it to BattleSpot, and BattleSpot calls, says, hey, there's something wrong with your Pokemon. And of course, if they pass, he pretty much has no way of knowing, because obviously, gen Pokemon can be pretty much 100% identical to bred Pokemon, and he can't guarantee and verify the exact source without BattleSpot telling him that his Pokemon are cheated. So I'm going to wrap up this video with my last point. Verlisify has gone out of his way to pretty much criticize anything and everything to do with the VGC community and worlds in general. He's saying that we're overcompetitive douchebags, overcompetitive jerks. He's trying to get Scott Glasser fired from the Pokemon Company International. Scott is actually, an excellent example of community role model at NuggetBridge.com. He founded NuggetBridge. And yet this guy comes and tries to get him fired and makes all his hard work in vain, all this sort of thing, which is quite stupid. More to the point, Verlisify has made various criticisms at Worlds before. He's criticized the prizes on offer. And now more recently, obviously, he's criticized it as pay to win. I think over the years, some people have said that, but it is what it is, in all honesty, regardless of what you may think of it. But more so recently, he has criticized Scott, obviously, as you can see behind me, and before, obviously, he's criticized Shady Penguin, who's obviously tied to Worlds now as an announcer as well. So, yeah, in various different shapes and forms, he has criticized worlds. And he's criticized people involved with worlds and involved with VGC in particular. What I have issue with here in this particular video is that he did not respect Scott's wishes, to pretty much level with him on private message. He pretty much said he acknowledged that Scott had taken an approach to try and resolve matters, but he just couldn't help himself and went and made a video on it anyway. So he pretty much just threw everything in Scott's face. Now, I will make this point. The staff at the PAX Pokemon booth are there to also promote the Pokemon brand. They have other functions to perform. They are not necessarily the same as regionals judges. They're not the same as worlds judges either. Scott is just trying to help them. As someone experienced in that sort of thing, he's trying to help them a little bit. Because you have to think this to yourself. The staff there at the PAX booth have other functions to perform other than overseeing a side tournament. Okay? And you go and say so many controversial things. It wasn't that long ago that you were pretty much saying, that we're over-competitive douchebags or over-competitive jerks and all this and all that. You even go say and say it on Twitter, I suggest you check his Twitter, that you say that people with VGC in their name are all jerks and more likely to attack and ignorant and all this sort of thing. No one is ignorant but you. And since we're talking about worlds, I will also make a brief mention of the metagame as well. Verlisify criticized it for having too many legendaries and so many of the same Pokemon. I'd like to challenge that point of view by stating the fact that Japan, up until more recently, was a best of one format. And that they had to resort to very unorthodox strategies and sets to qualify and pull things off. So it's not as if Japan is being unoriginal. To give you an idea, I believe I read an article where someone featured Snatch Rotom. And that was in Japanese Nationals. In a best of one format. And obviously he tries to rehash the age-old argument, legendary Pokemon overpowered, but in all honesty, let's be honest, they're permissible, and certainly Thundurus, Landorus, and Heatran aren't Mewtwo, Kyogre, and Groudon, for a brief example. I could go into more detailed analysis for this opinion, but it would require me to probably make a video on legendaries in general. So yeah, that's pretty much should wrap up this video at this point, because I don't want to be, I did anticipate it to be long, but I didn't want to be very long. I'm going to include some annotations, to other videos which go into detail for some other controversies involving Verlisify, and pretty much the purpose of this video, as I said at the start, we're identifying repeat pattern behavior, and we're looking at his drama, and we're looking at how it gets him into trouble, and pretty much we have to put up with it. Everyone in the Pokemon community, from the viewers to the people that post content, we had to put up with his horse shit, for lack of a better word. We always had to put up with this drama, and it's disheartening, and he's taken it pretty much. I sprung into action. Now, I knew quite a bit of what he had done in the past. I sprung into action when I saw him tell someone to kill themselves, and that struck a nerve, and that pretty much led me to make this video. So, thank you for watching. Verlis, if you're watching, or if any of Verlis' fans, first addressing Verlis, grow up, Verlis, and Verlis' fans. I honestly wonder what you see in this gentleman at the end of the day. Or I wouldn't possibly say gentleman, I would probably just say man. I don't think there's anything gentle about him. I honestly, want to know what you see in this man, because all I see is someone very deceitful, and someone willing to say to someone that, hey, they should commit self-harm, which is just unacceptable. You don't ever make jokes about stuff like that when it comes to life and death and that sort of thing. So yeah, take care.